Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 11 of Press YYZ. Is it episode 11? I thought that it's episode 12.
It's 12, I'm pretty sure.
Mitch, why did you mess up the number of this episode?
I didn't update that part of the doc.
This is our first live episode. We're on Twitch. Everybody's watching us. The world is rejoicing. The coronavirus is fading from the public consciousness.
No, it's
and
not.
It's the wrong episode. Just, what is wrong with you, man?
You're really dropping the ball here.
I hate you guys so much.
This is your one-stop shop where we bring you all the best video game news and discussion with a uniquely Canadian twist. You can find us on Twitter at PressYYZ, where we appreciate any feedback you may have. This week, we're going to talk about Cooking Mama and something else that Mitch's cursor is currently obscuring in
Cooking
the Google
Mama
Doc
and
that I'm
more.
reading from. And more. Oh, great.
I was
And
ready.
and wrap things up with a roundtable discussion of our biggest gaming regrets. I'm your host, Alexander Kazina, and I'm joined today by Mitch George,
I hate you guys so much right now.
by the head in the clouds, AJ Fraser,
What's up, guys?
by the baby, Alexander Ballant,
I've because I'm not going to school anymore. I've been demoted. Hi, everybody.
and finally by the father of us all, Nathan McKernery. Which I don't know that I'm still pronouncing that name correctly.
I think I'm the only one who's gotten it right.
McInerney.
McInerney.
There it is.
Can I write your the phonetic pronunciation of your name in the Google Doc?
I think your mic is muted.
I think. Yeah.
Oh no. Well, we didn't
What a
say
time
right
to
at
be
the top that we were going to have a perfectly airtight stream that was free of any slipshots or mistakes.
It's not the first time and it won't be the last.
Certainly not the last time.
We did say this was.
Can you hear
scripted.
me?
That is true. That is true as well. And in fact, everything that we're saying right now is actually entirely scripted. We're acting like we had a boo-boo on accident, when in reality, we all just, like I said, we're all reading from the Google Doc. And
Remember, they
occasionally-
can see the video. They can see Nathan tinkering with all his stuff, at least if they're watching us live,
He
which
is
is
a
new for
very
us this
good
week.
Actor.
Art is a lie.
A
Nothing
very
is
good
real.
actor. Well,
I
Can you
heard
guys
Ernie.
hear me,
That's
or
it.
am I out?
You heard? Yeah, I heard Ernie as well. Wait,
Bert,
hold
why
on
are
a
you yelling at
second.
me, Bert?
Hold on a second. Did his mic get muted because I said his name incorrectly?
Hopefully.
maybe.
I bet that if we listen back to all the previous shows where this sort of thing happened, it was always after one of us was like, "Hey, McInerney,
Hello?
what's going on?"
Macaroni.
That's just
Oh
because
my
we never
God,
get
his
his
mic
name
is
right.
muted.
Hey, can you hear me?
He's back.
Hey!
All right.
Thank God.
Woohoo!
Say something else.
Oh no.
Yes.
We can, in
Okay,
fact,
guys.
hear you.
Sorry, gentlemen.
Okay.
We're off to a rolling start here, fellas.
Cut this out of the live feed.
This is all staying in, by the way.
We could restart if you want.
I feel like this is part of the charm.
Nah. So, as you've probably, you may be watching this after the fact on podcast services. However,
Listening
there's a good
to.
chance that is true. You can watch it in your mind's eye on podcast services, Mitch. You do realize that, right?
That is entirely fair.
All right. You may be listening to this after the fact on podcast services. However, you might also be watching it live here on Twitch. We thought from the beginning of us putting together this show that it would be cool if we could stream ourselves live when we first record these episodes. And yeah, I finally got off my ass and I finally made a cute little Twitch graphic thing for us to show off how pretty our faces are when we do this podcast.
I am way into it. It's really good.
So just to go back to what we were trying to say, this week we're going to talk about some news around Cooking Mama and how that's really, really weird. And our topic of the show is going to be a round table where we're going to each talk about our biggest gaming regrets. There.
Indeed
Now
we
it's
are.
complete.
Now,
Just
for the
wanna keep 'em
record,
coming back.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that outside of the part after Cooking Mama, where I was supposed to say "and more," that I actually said that part of the show perfectly correctly.
Whatever.
All right.
Let's just move on.
As you can see, our streaming setup and way that we're presenting ourselves has greatly improved, but our tempers have not.
Not
So,
the slightest.
but by talking amongst each other, talking about what we've been doing over the past week, I'm sure that we can improve our appreciation of each other. What have we been up to?
Don't everyone talk at once.
Well, I'll start because it's the same thing I was up to last week, plus 2 review games that I had to play. Let's talk about some Animal Crossing.
Hell yeah,
Oh,
let's talk about
yeah.
them nips. How many
All we
nips did you
talk
make?
about.
Yeah.
How many nips did you sell?
I sold $2 million worth of nips, leading me to a profit of about, I've got about 12 million in my bank account
Holy
with a $2.5 million loan paid off.
Yeah, I paid, I think it was like 1.5 at 94 each, and I ended up walking away with over 10 million. So
I finally got to 1 million yesterday when we all went to an island that AJ gave us from one of his friends, and
yeah.
can we just talk about how
I
terrible...
had no issues. I got into and out of that island. I sold my 1 batch of turnips, made my 2 million, and I was content.
Well, lucky you,
And-
because
and-
oh my god, Animal Crossing Online is an absolute clusterfuck. Holy shit.
It's really bad.
Holy God.
Nintendo seriously dropped the ball with their online features for this game.
So,
Again.
Cozy, to catch you up here, essentially what happens is every time someone
Oh,
wants to...
I know.
Oh, do
I
you?
know.
Okay, well,
you don't think that I don't read all of your messages on Discord of you guys going over this shit? And I'm like, oh man, I hope that something serious hasn't happened. There are like 69 unread messages. Oh no, it's just more Animal Crossing.
For our listeners and viewers who don't know, every time you enter or exit someone else's town, everyone has to quit out of every menu they're in, and it stops and loads for, I want to say 2 minutes.
30 seconds?
No, it's longer than that.
It's-
I think it's like 30 seconds.
It's around 30 to a minute, I would say.
When somebody wants to join and when somebody wants to leave, nobody is allowed to be in a menu. You have to be doing nothing so that they can stop, save the game, load the person in, load the map onto their Switch, I guess, and then the person can play around in the same world.
And while this is happening,
it's
every person has to watch the airplane fly in to the airport, and it's just grueling, especially when you have a high traffic island that has really good nip prices.
Can
I
we
had
stop
to
calling
make-
them that, please?
Never nips for
No.
life.
We're gonna milk that until the end.
We're gonna
I
milk
podcast
them
with
nips.
children.
Milk the nips.
Only one.
Hashtag milk the nips.
My wife does not appreciate the nips, by the way. She would prefer we don't call it nips, I was told.
Yeah, I'm sure any female listeners or viewers we have immediately tuned out of this. Because
That's really
Not
generous to
seen
think that we have
Meet the
female
Fockers.
listeners.
Apparently, you can you can milk anything with a nipple. So
at least at the beginning of this stream, my fiance was listening. I don't know if she's there anymore. And I'll get a
she
text
was only
and
here because she loves you.
well, yeah.
So-
that's probably why most of the people are here. Everyone loves us. Come on.
Can we have some female listeners reach out to us and tell us whether you prefer or don't prefer the term nips, and we'll go with that.
That's fair.
How about that?
So yeah, Animal Crossing Online is broken, and Final Fantasy VII Remake is goddamn beautiful.
Oh yes, it is.
Oh my god, I spent my entire weekend playing this game, and it's just... If nothing else comes out this year, it's my game of the year. Bar none.
Ooh.
It's really, really good.
Yeah, it's quite fantastic. I am a person who has literally never given a shit about Final Fantasy in his entire life. I've never played any of them. I've never had any interest in playing them. They all looked very not my style, but it was because of that free demo on the PlayStation Store that just got me to buy the game because it was so good, and I was like, this is amazing, and oh my god, it's been so worth it.
I mean, I'm in the same boat. I've never played a Final Fantasy game. The closest I got was Kingdom Hearts, which has a more convoluted story than Final Fantasy VII. And it's... This game is incredible. Like, if you had told me this wasn't a single part of a game, I would say, okay, this is a game that had a conclusive beginning, middle, end, and set up for a sequel. That's it. It
has
does not
anybody
feel like a
played-
part of something. It's a great standalone game. It plays beautifully. The mechanics are awesome. The visuals are mind-blowing. It looks better than the anime movie they put out 10 years ago, Advent Children. It's
Has
incredible.
Has anybody played 15, and like how does it compare to that? Anybody?
I actually would love to know this because I'm pretty close to, well, I'm about halfway through the game, and I'm like kind of already feeling like, oh, I want to not play as much because I don't want it to end. And But then I'm like,
How many hours?
I'm about 15, I would say.
Okay, so I finished my playthrough at about 40 hours.
Okay.
And I'm already planning to go back to it to beat it on hard mode to get the platinum. That's how much I love this game. I don't want the experience to end.
Yeah. I was thinking, like, by the time that I finish it, I'm like, oh, but if I get 15, will it be kind of close to being similar? Like, will it be, like, close enough that I'll get, like, the same feelings again? I don't know. And so that's why I'd love to know about that if anyone's played 15.
Yeah, I don't think any of us have played both 15 and 7 Remake. I think, Cozy, have you played 15?
Okay, so early, but when we were setting up the show, I said that I had this big gaming regret. This is not the regret I was talking about, but this is actually a pretty big gaming regret. I'm just going to say it right now because I think we were all just going to go and give one response towards the end of the show. Basically, when I was living in Japan in late 2016, I purchased Final Fantasy XV with the total intention of playing it to completion, and I just never got around to it.
Okay, well, fair enough.
Did you play any of it though, Cozy?
Yeah, like, at all?
I did play like so like, for example, when you're loading up the game and it isn't fully loaded, there's like an arena that you can kind of mess around in.
So no, the answer is no. You haven't played the game.
No. And it was like, the thing that I want to kind of stress, right, is that when I was living in Japan, I did not have a lot of money at my disposal. And so me purchasing this, AAA game digitally, I mean, one, it, put pressure on my digital storage space in my PlayStation 4. I didn't have a portable hard drive at the time, giving me more storage space. And two, it was a pretty, it put a dent in my bank account at the time. So just to kind of stress, why that was kind of a big deal and kind of a pretty big regret on my part.
So is the plan to go back to it? Is it still on your hard drive?
I think I deleted it, but I can obviously always re-download it. I don't know.
Yeah, because I know you put out a Twitter poll for the next game you should stream, and I'm not going to say that I voted in it 3 times because I have 3 Twitter accounts, but I definitely voted in it 3 times because I have 3 Twitter accounts, and I'm very much looking forward to watching you stream Final Fantasy VII Remake.
I'm looking forward to it too.
Yeah,
I'll
so
say
great.
that much.
Now, Mitch, very important question before we get off the Final Fantasy VII talk. Who is the waifu of this game? Is it Aerith? Is it Tifa? Or is it Jessie?
It's 100% Jessie.
Oh, okay. That's a good answer. They're all good answers.
I'm Team Jessie for sure.
They're all great answers.
Yeah,
I think
the plant.
I love Aerith.
That's fair.
She's adorable, and she, like, just the banter that her and Cloud have are great. I love how she's just constantly fucking with him. It's awesome.
I'm interested to see how you feel about that when you finish the game, and I'm hoping that between you, myself, and Cozy, when we've all finished it, that we can sit down and just do a one-off spoiler cast of Final Fantasy VII Remake and just spoil the crap out of it, because I need to talk about this with somebody.
I can spoil the game from 20 years ago if you guys would like.
Please don't do that.
I mean,
I know one spoiler from 20 years ago.
too.
That's it.
I know, like, the spoiler, but I want to try to avoid as much as I can about the remake because I know that there are some differences.
I'm in the same boat. Please don't.
All right. Just thought I'd throw it out there for you guys.
You can just hold it against us. You can always have that threat on us because it's going to be like another 5 years before the sequel comes out.
Yeah, and
Take
that's
your
only going to be
time.
like the next third of the game.
I want them to take their time. This first one is so beautifully done that if it doesn't live up to this, I'll be disappointed.
I'm more concerned
So
when we'll
we'll have
get
to wait
Final.
and see.
I'd like Final Fantasy IX remake. I don't know when we'll get that.
Just give me more Final Fantasy VII, baby. Inject it into my veins.
The only thing that I think is a little off about Final Fantasy VII Remake is, and I don't know if this will get fixed in like a patch or something, but there's a lot of like missing textures or like a lot of texture pop-in that I've noticed, but it doesn't really detract from the game itself, but it's something that I've noticed that like a lot of the environments are sometimes missing like a lot of textures.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. You're playing on a base PS4, right?
No, I'm playing on a Pro.
On a Pro? Okay, yeah, so am I. And I've noticed a few times, like, you can tell the difference between what is a rendered cutscene versus what's in-engine. Because a lot of the in-engine cutscenes, you'll see some very low-res textures, like logos and things like that, that I found very off-putting. But ultimately, for me, it didn't detract from the experience.
Yeah,
but it was noticeable.
I just want to chime in and say that the biggest reason why I didn't go ahead and pick this up at the moment because, I mean, it's not like any of us have too much else to do in this time in the world, is because I still only have a base PS4, and it sounds like a jet engine, and I do not feel like burning my house down.
So, I mean, my PS4 Pro sounds like a jet engine when I'm
mine
playing this
too.
game, but I throw on noise-canceling headphones and I don't notice. It's worth it.
I got mine 2 years ago, and it sounds like a jet engine. So
So, AJ, actually, we've got a note in the chat saying, what the hell are you wearing on your head?
Of course, you brought it up. It's like you're reading
Someone
the chat
had
or
to.
something. Somebody had to. So this is a hat that I bought off Etsy back in 2011 or 2012. At some point after Skyrim came out, made in the image of the iron armor from Skyrim. And I was just so into the game at the time, and I just figured if this is our first live episode, why not start out with something strong on my head.
It's going to be very warm by the end of the night. I hope you know that.
yeah.
It also stops me from touching my face, which I hear is what we're not supposed to do at this point.
Yeah, that's also true.
I think I've touched my face like 13 times since we started recording. So
Yeah. I pick my nose way too much normally without coronavirus, so it's probably better being live that I just wear this for now.
That crack was perfectly timed. I want to talk a little bit about what I've been up to over the past week, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
Please
So, first things first, I beat Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
What did you think?
Yeah, what did you think?
I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think that certain developments towards the end of the game were a little bit rushed.
Yes, I agree with that.
I kind of noted on this on Twitter already that like it feels like a very good first go at a new franchise that will be followed up by an even better sequel. Like you sometimes have these series, like I feel like Sly Cooper is a great example of this, where the first entry in the Sly Cooper series is great, but compared to the second game, it feels kind of lesser than. And it's not because of a sense, there was any laziness on the part of Insomniac or in this case Respawn, but just because it's pretty apparent that perhaps they didn't have all the time in the world or all the resources in the world to implement every idea to the fullest that it could have been, or implement them, period. And here's hoping that the inevitable sequel, will make good on all that.
The only thing I would like to say about Fallen Order is it falls into a trapping that Star Wars does a lot, where with the ending specifically of just relying on iconic imagery and characters to do the heavy lifting of the emphasis of the plot, that I don't want to spoil it, but what they did, I was just like, really, did you have to do that? Like almost every character in the game is original except for a few minor characters from like Rogue One, and I was cool with them being in the game just because they were minor, that it didn't have to. Star Wars is such an expansive world that you don't need to constantly be referencing things that we've already seen. Like, we can have other stories that are happening with completely different characters, and I just felt like it was kind of like, did you really have to do that in Fallen Order? But besides that, like, I really did enjoy the game.
Can I just say one thing not at all related to Fallen Order? Mm-hmm. In that the hallway fight at the end of Rogue One with Darth Vader is probably the best fight scene in Star Wars franchise history.
About Rogue One. I'm just gonna say
Rogue One is a good movie.
No, it is not. It is a very
Yes, it
not
is.
good movie that is held together by an okay third act.
It is better than any of the sequels and any of the prequels.
Nope, Last Jedi is
We're
the
gonna get
best
Gary
Star
Whitta
Wars
on
movie
this
since
podcast
Empire
one day,
Strikes
and
Back.
You can talk to him about that.
We're gonna have to talk about this another
Yeah,
time.
let's not get it. At the beginning of this year, I made a New Year's resolution that I
Resolution?
wasn't. Yeah, I couldn't think of the word. I made a New
what
Year's,
we're here for.
I made a New Year's resolution that I wasn't going to talk about Star Wars, and I've broken that so many times. I don't think I could count it on. I just don't think I could count how many times I've broken that.
You've done it at least a dozen times on this show, and we only record once a week.
I love Star Wars, but I also love to hate it.
I want to move away from the dark sides and the Star Warses for just a second and talk about the other game I've been playing this week, which has been Rogue Legacy. So you might remember how last week, I believe that we didn't even talk about this game. I played a little bit of Below. The code for Below was provided to us by Pop Agenda, friends of the show, I think. And basically, I decided to go into it blind just to see if that would make for a more pure experience, and I quickly got frustrated. And then after the fact, I looked into things, and I quickly discovered, okay, so the deal with Below is that it's a sort of semi-procedural dungeon crawler where every time you die, your path is sort of taken over by a new hero that arrives at the dungeon that Below takes place on. And basically, when it came out, people were really dissatisfied with its level of difficulty. They thought it was just too punitive. There's like a bunch of like survival mechanics in the game, like for example needing to stay hydrated and needing to stay healthy, that just really kind of grinded people's gears. And I discovered that basically with the PlayStation 4 release of this game, they had implemented a new Explore mode that significantly kind of toned down a lot of the more difficult aspects of the game. And so I was getting ready to check out the Explore mode and have a more kind of concrete opinion of the game on this episode of the show, until I was sitting down, to download it on my PlayStation 4, and I was thinking, I really do miss Rogue Legacy. I feel like Rogue Legacy did what this game is trying to do, but just way better.
Sure, they also announced a sequel this week.
Yeah, so and the thing is art-wise, sound-wise, it's not quite as good as Below. Like Below's, graphics and sound design are really, really impressive. But Rogue Legacy does such a great job of, okay, you die, you instantaneously respawn as a new ear, and your ear is heading off into the castle. Comparatively, Below is just very kind of slow and plodding. Every time you enter into a new room, things slowly fade out, and then they fade in again. Your character slowly arrives at the dungeon whenever they die on a new ship. That instantaneousness of Rogue Legacy really appealed to me. So I decided, you know what? I'm just going to re-download Rogue Legacy on my PlayStation 4. Picked up my save from 2016 when I beat the game, and basically am one trophy away now from platinuming it.
Nice.
Oh, nice. What's the last trophy?
The last trophy is the most difficult trophy, and it's to beat the game starting from scratch using only 15 different ears, so basically dying only 15 times or less, without using the architect to lock down the dungeon. So the way that things work in Rogue Legacy is that the dungeon normally is randomized every time that you die. However, you can lock it down so that it resembles the layout of the way it looked when you were playing as your previous ear. And basically, to get this trophy, I'm not allowed to do that.
Oh.
Yeah, that's one I've been wanting to get back to. I actually, earlier, just before this podcast, I pulled out and dusted off what is known as the PlayStation Vita and plugged that bad boy in for the first time in a long time to give it a charge so I could jump into that.
Yeah, definitely, I've had such a blast getting into it. I've honestly been a little bit too addicted to it. I definitely need to curb my tendencies a little bit if I'm going to come out of this alive. But yeah, that game holds up incredibly well, and I am so happy that I came back to it, even though it is slowly tearing me apart.
Can I do something really different for a minute if we're wrapping up this section of the show?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I want to do a live review, if that's cool.
All right.
Okay.
So I'm going to live review what is a sought after, hard to come by product new to Canada that caused lines around the block while there were still allowed to be lines. That's White Claw.
Oh.
Which, for whatever reason, social media went crazy about this thing last summer in the US, and for whatever reason it came to Canada, people freaked out, but it's essentially just a hard cider or hard seltzer. So
it's like what was the thing that came before it? LaCroix. It's like the evolution of LaCroix, right?
This is better than LaCroix. This is actually pretty good.
Well, I mean, but LaCroix was an alcoholic, right? So of course it's going to be better. LaCroix just tasted like if you screamed pomegranate in another room and then drank some water or whatever.
Don't you speak poorly of LaCroix. I've got some peach pear in the fridge right now, but this is actually really good. I've been trying to find alcoholic beverages that are a little lower in calories, just trying to slim down before the wedding. So I've been doing a lot, if I've wanted a drink, I've been doing sparkling water with a shot of vodka or like vodka sodas and things like that. This is pretty good. Not gonna lie. That's my review.
The Twitch chat is not on your side.
Okay, that's fine. They're allowed to be wrong.
Like they find it underwhelming and do not like it.
I mean, it tastes like sparkling water. I drink sparkling water daily. That's all I needed out of it. It's good. I like it.
All right. Well, with that utterly memorable review out of the way, it's time for our weekly news dump. Normally, I would not like to hand the reins back over to Mitch after giving that riveting review, but I'm afraid that Mitch is the person that put together the weekly news dump for this week of news. That's a dump. So, if you could guide us through this, I'd be incredibly appreciative.
Ready, set, go. News drop.
So now for the news, and the first bit of news is an update from last week where we talked about Cooking Mama Cookstar. So we've got some more Cooking Mama drama in that the publisher decided to release a game that the IP holder didn't want them to release, and we actually have an update from the IP holder, Office Create, who are looking into legal action against the publisher and have terminated the license use for Cooking Mama to Planet Entertainment. And we've actually, just before this show, there was an update on the Cooking Mama Cookstar Twitter account, which is not a verified account, but comes with Planet Entertainment letterhead. This story is just bonkers. So the statement from Planet Entertainment essentially reads that creative differences arose near completion of the game that were outside of the agreement between Planet Entertainment and Office Create. But by contract, Planet feels like they had the rights to publish the game. And it kind of makes sense that the IP holder didn't want this to come out because reviews have started coming out for this game. IGN gave it a 3.
Wow. And
right now it's sitting at a 45 on Metacritic from 5 reviews.
I didn't read the review yet, so you'll have to guide me through this. Is the problem that the game is that it's just like not very well polished and there's not just a lot of really compelling content, or is it that it straight up doesn't work?
So this review was written by Travis Northup over at IGN, so go give it a click. But
hey,
essentially,
Travis.
If I go into the summary, Cooking Mama Cookstar is a stale, undercooked simulator that needed a lot of time in the oven. So it just sounds like, actually here, let me read his verdict. I don't like jumping to the end of reviews. The whole thing is worth reading.
Yeah, it's fine.
But it boils down to this. Cooking Mama Cookstar is bogged down by monotony, poor motion controls, nightmarish voice acting, and practically nothing new to offer. Whether it's the lack of consequences for failure, the obnoxious voice acting, the bland single-player modes, the lackluster multiplayer video games, or the complete lack of meaningful progression, Cooking Mama Cookstar is a tedious game that does almost nothing well. Ooh, that's scathing.
Don't shake the baby.
No, don't shake the baby. Yeah, this story just keeps getting better and better. It's so crazy.
I think we're going to be done hearing about it soon, though. I feel like it's hitting its, like, we've gotten too much news about it.
You say that, but there's still a potential legal case that we're going to hear a lot about over the next who knows how long, because courts aren't really in session at the moment. So this story could stretch out, and it's just bizarre. Like last week we read about a developer that gave an interview with, I don't remember the publication, but it was like, it wasn't a traditional games publication, but it's like, why would you reach out to what is not a games outlet to talk about games and give this scathing, like, talking about how poorly things are being done on their side, that they were novice developers in Unreal and no one really knew what they were doing. There's no way they could have hit Bitcoin mining in it because no one at the company would have understood how to do that, and they were just using buzzwords in their initial press releases. This story is just insane.
Was it Cinema Blend that they spoke with?
I can go find last week's show. No, it was something else.
Anyways,
I can go find the show notes from last week if you guys want to just talk about this.
Let's move on.
I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my experience with Cooking Mama is actually pretty limited. So I would love to say more about this because this is such a spectacular dump of a story. But, unfortunately, I don't have much else to say.
All right, then we can move on. The next story is that Nintendo's released the latest version of their firmware for the Switch and have finally allowed for migrating data from system memory to SD card memory and full controller remapping.
Ooh.
That is something I'm super excited about.
Yeah, that's
Why
a
is that?
feature. That's a feature that's just been long missing that I think everything needs to have.
Yeah, like look at what Xbox is doing with the adaptive controller and stuff like that. Just for accessibility alone, being able to say, "Hey, listen, I don't want jump on this button. I want it on this other button instead." Can change the game for so many people and give a lot more opportunities for people to just have a good time and enjoy playing any game.
The big hubbub I saw about this on the internet was that people were just flipping the A and B button because Nintendo is the only controller that has the confirm button be on the right instead of on the bottom.
Yeah.
But I'm used to it. I'm not going to remap it. Or any of you guys thinking about
It took me
remapping
so
your
long to
controllers?
get used to that, and it was such a problem when I switched between them. I've probably got it now, and if I tried to switch it back, I'd probably just be screwing it up the other way.
So with PlayStation, circle and cross meant something, right? Because cross,
That's a
X
confirm.
was supposed to be, cancel or don't. But here we saw it as, X marks the spot, I guess, and that's just sort of how, it worked over here.
Yeah, it was funny. That was sort of how things, like, if you go back to like PlayStation 1 games, I know I've gone back a few times to things like Digimon World or Digimon Trading Card Game, which were both phenomenal. But they have the confirm be the circle button and the back be the cross button because in Japanese nomenclature, circle was like okay and X was
It's yes
X'd out.
and no.
Yeah, it's yes and no. So it's interesting how that's changed over the years and how Nintendo, being a Japanese company, is really the only holdout to that design of A being on the right and not the bottom.
Yeah, and it's interesting that like Sony, also being a Japanese company, has decided to migrate more to like appeal to Western standards of how things are, how controls are. Go ahead, AJ.
To be fair, when I'm not entirely sure they do that for Japanese release games.
Fair enough.
I think because in Japanese culture it still means the original meaning. They tend to stick with that, and I believe they just swapped them for us dum-dums over here.
Well, so I was just going to bring up when I was living in Japan and I used to buy those
good point.
visual novels for PlayStation Vita games. Sorry, PlayStation Vita visual novels. When I would play those games, it took me a bit of time to wrap my head around, I have to press the circle button to confirm a dialogue choice, not the X button. Eventually, I mean, it was a relatively short amount of time that it took me to wrap my head around it, but that did throw me for a loop for a bit because it's, totally not the way it's done over here.
Yeah, and you could see the same thing. Like, it's not like that was limited to just Digimon. That was just the first idea that came to mind when I was talking about that. I think the Metal Gear Solid series was originally that way. There's a lot of most games on the PlayStation 1 era were that configuration, and just at some point it just changed.
There's a very similar feature to this that the 360 had that they didn't carry forward into the next generation. And it's one that I very much appreciate, but I know it's about to get me in very hot water with HR. You could have specifically profile settings on your Xbox Live account for something like, if you're on the correct side of history and you want to play inverted.
No.
Oh no.
With the yeah, absolutely. You pull back on the joystick and you look up. That's how it works. So that would carry across whether I logged in on a friend's console or not or whatever. And when I booted up a new game, it was just automatically set to my settings like that. I didn't have to go into a menu and select it in every single game. It would just automatically do that for me. And that specifically is what I appreciated about it.
I'm interested in seeing if because the Switch controllers have their own internal memory, their own firmware, all this stuff. I'm wondering if, and I didn't read enough into this, so it could be that I'm totally off my rocker here, but I know at least with the original Wii, you could save data, you could take your Miis to your friends' houses and all that sort of stuff. I'm wondering if this button remapping is actually being saved to the controller or the system. Because it could be that if you remap your Pro Controller, let's say, for a specific game, and you go to a friend's house, you want it to behave the same way. So, curious if that would work. I might actually try that the next time I've got 2 Switches in the same place.
Or the next time you can go outside.
Yeah, there's that too.
On the continuing extravaganza of voyages of news that we're currently on, there is something that we need to talk about with regards to the ESRB.
Yes, there is. So earlier today, the ESRB announced that they're adding an additional label to designations for in-game loot boxes.
This
So
is
if
long overdue.
Yeah, so this is coming from gamesindustry.biz, written by Brendan St. Clair, and that the in-game purchases, including random items designation, was created in response to concern of players and not necessarily parents. So boxes will now be, like, the ESRB will now be able to include this label in any game that they feel has appropriate loot box mechanics in order to keep players well informed. My question for you guys is this enough?
No. This is 100%.
Is
This is done so that they can have something to show the government, so like the US government that was mostly like prying down on them, be like, hey, look, we're doing something. Please don't legislate us, because if they legislate them, they're going to go too far in the other direction. And so like this is mostly just done to like just try to get the government off their back.
So okay, so is this just going to be like contains purchase like it would put on every other ESRB label where it says like blood, violence, sexual themes,
Yes.
stuff like that? Is it
That's
just gonna
exactly
say
what it's going to say.
loot box or whatever it's going to say,
Well,
whatever the
it's going to say
designation is?
in-game purchases, brackets,
Yep.
includes random items.
Okay, so I wonder. So
That is the
so it
designation.
So it's just loot boxes, though. But a lot of games, as of now, have gotten rid of loot boxes because of the controversies. They've mostly just been sticking to microtransactions. So it will say in-game purchases, but will they make the distinction that it's like these games still have like heavy microtransactions?
So
Yeah.
So this is the second time the ESRB has adapted to the criticism around loot boxes. The first attempt was actually to introduce a designation that was just in-game purchases. So they will designate between in-game purchases and in-game purchases where those are tied to loot box mechanics.
Okay.
But I'm
Okay.
with you, Alex. I think that there should be much more done about this. It should
Yeah.
be on the developers to, not try to gouge every penny they can out of their player base, but that's just me.
I also think like this is kind of a, oh, won't somebody think of the children, please? But I'm more like, won't somebody think of the parents that are kind of super ignorant to these mechanics and how things are.
How many parents
It's
are
not really
actually going to read the box?
Yeah, it's
like
not really
this?
going to be an educational thing for people who are just unaware of how video games are now.
So obviously the whole parent thing is a good point.
I
Uh-oh.
think he's,
Oh no!
We'll get them back.
hopefully he's still recording.
Yeah, it's still recording and they can see us, but we're kind of letterboxed between these
Did you
five
create
things.
a background for this one too?
No, not yet, because I anticipated that it was going to be the five of us in total, and things took up my time, occupied my life. I wasn't able to. Oh, there we go.
Are we still on the same? Yeah, we're all okay.
I was going to say earlier, like, what about you guys? Like, plain Jane gamers, do you guys ever read any of the ESRB whatchamacallits?
I read the basic label that's like the T for teen, and like, but not like, I don't really go like in depth to what that means. Like, just kind of what is on the corner of the box is probably the most that I will actually.
I haven't really read those or looked at that since I was 16 going on 17, because M for Mature is 17 plus, and the local EB Games would enforce, hey, if you're you must have ID, and if you're under 17, you have to have a parent present to purchase an M-rated game.
Because I'm wondering,
enforce it.
I'm wondering, and this might be viewed as like a bit of a drastic step, if they should straight up just put a sticker on the box that is like comparable in size but smaller to the ESRB letter next to it, to emphasize if the game has loot boxes or not. Like, one, would you guys be down with that? And two, do you think that it would be enough of a measure to take to help solve the current predicament? that we're kind of still getting ourselves out of.
I think it would definitely help to have something that is more visually like noticeable than just another label under the current ESRB box. And a lot of times those actual designations you have to look at the back of the box to get them anyway.
Yeah.
So a lot of people aren't going to do that.
Okay. How long until our video game boxes start to look like our cigarette cartons?
Hopefully it doesn't get to that point.
Yeah, I think it'll be. Is it just gonna be like a kid on the street, like with like a homeless kid being like, "This is what you could be if you use loot boxes"?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I mean, I think a large portion of this is being driven by mobile. So I think either on mobile or even if you were to say look at any of the digital marketplaces with the shift towards more digital purchases of video games, maybe it is just an intermittent page if a game has that designation, just to pop up to say, hey, this has microtransactions. You cool with that? All right, great. But one other step to make sure people confirm that they understand that these behaviors might be brought up by this game. And honestly, when it comes to one of my biggest gaming regrets, which we'll talk about in a bit, it actually plays into this conversation pretty closely. So it'll be interesting to hear what you guys say when we get to that bit of the show.
One of the things that I know will absolutely never happen is an opt-in. Like, hey, we would like to advertise these in-game items to you that may be randomized. Would you like to opt into that? And, you know, obviously that'll never happen, but yeah. Ideally, in my opinion, I think if there was a pop-up in-game that just let me choose, like, hey, listen, don't put this button prompt on my screen that takes me to this page. Let me, I don't know, find it through the options menu or something like that instead, or whatever. I think that would be a very good gesture, a goodwill gesture, but that'll never happen.
I mean, it remains to be seen what's going to come of this new ESRB designation, but something we don't have to wait much longer for is the new PlayStation initiative of play at home, right? Yeah, the play at home initiative.
Playing at home.
Play at home.
That's where I always play my video games.
Really?
Most of the time.
I'm into that streaming life, so I play it everywhere.
Yeah.
Stadia boys.
So the Play at Home initiative is something that Sony announced earlier this week, and that they're going to give away 2 free games to everybody. Those games being Uncharted: The Nathan Drake Collection and Journey. So they're going to be free for everyone from April 15th, which is today, as of recording. So now through May the 5th. And I think this is actually really nice. It's good to see companies giving to the communities that supported them in ways that'll keep them active, at least mentally, at home. What do you guys think about this? Do you think it's going to continue past that May 5th point? Will we see other games added to this, or is this it?
I mean, I also just wanted to make a point. That's not all that they're doing. They're also committing $10 million to support independent game developers, like partners of them, that have been affected by the current predicaments of COVID-19 as well.
Yes,
so
thank you. That's huge.
Yeah, I think we needed to shout out that really important detail of this initiative.
Yeah, it's a great initiative. It's too bad that I have both of these games already, and I suspect a lot of other hardcore PlayStation gamers are in the same boat as me. But obviously, there are always going to be players who have never played Uncharted or Journey before, and this is great for them.
I'm very lucky to be in that boat of not having played Journey ever.
Journey is so good.
Yeah, it's really good. So, somewhat of a side note, completely related. Speaking of finding the cure for COVID and stuff like that, do you guys remember folding at home on the PS3?
I do.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. Folding at home is a game?
No.
It's something. So what they did is they released an app on the PS3 that would harness the power of the cell when you were not using it.
Okay.
And they would use it to do these combine everybody's PS3s together to run like a supercomputer and do these very, very difficult math calculations, and something called protein full. I did not take.
Yeah,
too much
it had to do with
biology.
researching proteins.
Researching proteins and how they all work together, different combinations and stuff like that.
And I think it's still happening. Like that's still an initiative that you could present. You could use your PC for, but it's not a Sony thing anymore.
Yes, you can. That's exactly why I'm bringing it up, because I've been meaning to bring it up for a while, and I just keep forgetting. But there is an app you can get on your PC that when you're not using your PC, your laptop, whatever, it will be given a protein to fold essentially in the background or whatever, and a lot of these, specifically the one that I am using for this is to try and find a cure for COVID-19 specifically. That is something you can do. Just Google folding at home and see how you can add that to your computer. It's similar to I don't know if you guys. Do you guys remember? Have you guys ever done SETI at home, where they're trying to search for extraterrestrial life using your computer?
That sounds like some Tom DeLonge crazy business that I'm not there for.
My dad used to be way into it back in the day. It's been around for years, but yeah, it's similar to that. It just you just donate your computer power in your downtime, and it just does the scientific research for you. So it's a good cause.
Yeah, I think everything these companies are doing in reacting to COVID-19, they're most are going about it in the best way. One that isn't, and that's what I want to bring up next in Read All the Things, specifically for Nathan, is the WWE. So as we know, the WWE has been the only thing to continue operating during COVID-19's pandemic. I don't know why. That's a story for another day. But the news for Nathan is that reportedly WWE 2K21 has been canceled in favor of an upcoming smaller game to tide people over until whatever it is they come out with next.
So thank God.
Yeah, really.
That's what I was gonna say, yeah. Wasn't the last one?
Yeah,
really
the
bad?
WWE series has needed a refresh for years. I keep hoping they'll take an off year or two to refresh whatever the 2K line is and come out with something new. I'm very happy to hear that they've canceled 2021, especially with all the issues that 20 had. There was, I believe it was 18, which
some of those gifs that came out of the bugs in that game are just mind-blowing how that got through QA and they actually released the damn thing.
I'm also excited about a smaller wrestling title. It won't happen, but I keep hoping it's one of the old N64 engine games that's been revamped. That's what everybody wants, but I don't know if we'll get it.
Yeah, it remains to be seen. So that's not something that I really wanted to talk about much, but just something I knew Nathan would be particularly interested in. So with that, I will hand the reins back to our host with the most. Cozy?
Thank you, Mitch. Now, normally this is a part of the show where we talk about some of the biggest and most important deals that we happen to come across on the digital interwebs. This time around, however, it doesn't seem like anybody found any deals. So I'm afraid that you, the audience, are not going to be getting any deals this week.
The only deal I'll shout out is L Babbins on Twitter. Go give him a follow. He tweets out every half decent deal that comes out, and I bought another Switch game today because I saw him tweet about it.
What'd you buy?
Can you? Sorry, I was going to say, can you spell out L Babbins?
LBABINZ on Twitter.
Got it.
So I bought Chroma Squad.
Oh, that's the Power Rangers game. I want that.
That is the Power Rangers inspired tactical RPG for the Switch and PC. So I'm very much looking forward to checking that out hopefully this week and having something to say about it next week. 12 something?
I'm debating.
It's the lowest price it's been.
I'm debating Digimon Cyber Sleuth. The complete story for Switch is on sale for $38.
Yeah, 39. I thought about that too, but that was the other reason why I pulled out the Vita, because I have the first one on Vita and the second one on the PS4, so I don't really need to buy it again. I just got to get back to it. So yeah, if anyone hasn't, go check out L Babbins on Twitter.
All right. Well, definitely go and do that. Before you do that, however, please stick around and continue watching or listening to us, because we are about to get into our topic of the show for this week. And our topic of the show for this week is our biggest gaming regrets.
No regrets.
when we were setting up the show, I talked about how I was concerned that I wasn't going to have a big regret that I could bring to the table. I do have a big regret that I'm going to bring to the table after all.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
However, I'm going to force you guys to drag yourselves through the mud first because I want to remain pristine and polished for as long as possible.
Before we get to that, I did put out a post on Twitter asking for some feedback. Didn't get any. So if anyone is with us live in the chat as we record this live, feel free to throw any of your gaming regrets in there. We'll read them out on the show.
Cool. All right. Alexander Ballant.
Ooh, I feel like I don't want to be too presumptuous, but I think I might have the best one or the worst one, depending on how you want to classify it.
Sure.
So, I think, when did this come out? This came out in 2013. This is the worst controller I have ever purchased in my entire life. This, do you know what this is?
Oh, the Steam controller.
Oh, God, that's the Steam Link.
Yeah, this is the Steam controller is what I'm holding up to the Discord and the Twitch chat. I bought one of these as soon as it came out, and this is the most uncomfortable piece of garbage I've ever put any amount of money into.
Oh.
But you've used Joy-Cons, right?
Yes, and the Joy-Cons are infinitely better than this. This is really bad. The fact that so for those who don't know, and I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't know,
go Google it. You need to see this thing. It's a monstrosity.
The Steam controller has these two gigantic circle pads that are supposed to replicate the mouse, because this controller was designed in part with the Steam machines that Valve and Alienware tried to do, where they tried to have a PC-like experience on your couch. Basically tried to make a PC but a console, but did it really, really terribly by also having the whole operating system run on Linux, so you could only play like maybe not even a third of the games that were on Steam at the time. It was really bad. But the Steam controller had these circle pads that tried to emulate a mouse, and they are so absolutely unresponsive, really bad. The placement of them is not great because they're above the buttons. And so you have to constantly take your hand off of the stick to get to the buttons, and it's just a really awkward movement. It's got a thumbstick as well, just cause, like, it's got, and the grips on them are really weirdly, they've got like the really bad ergonomics. It's just a really terrible controller. I played 2 full games on this, and they were both Telltale games. That's the only games that I could even remotely manage to play on this.
I want a review of how Doom Eternal plays with that.
I will do a full Let's Play of Doom
Please
Eternal.
do.
Please stream it here so
Yeah.
everybody
Okay,
can
now
watch. I want to
have
see
to do it.
what
Okay.
happens.
Now you've committed to it. You
God
have
damn.
to do
All
it.
right. At some point in the future, on twitch.tv /PressYYZ, I will play most of Doom Eternal. I'm not committing to the full game. Fuck that. That game's like 20 hours
You probably
long.
shouldn't commit to most.
I will
let's be
play.
real.
Commit to at least a level.
I will play at least a couple of. No, fuck that. I will play Super Gore Nest, which is my favorite level in Doom Eternal, with the Steam controller on Nightmare.
And ruin
I'd
that
rather
level
see you-
for yourself.
You
I'll
can
play it
you
on
can do
Nightmare.
chapter select after you beat the game, right?
Yes.
Please play the final boss level with that controller.
Okay,
Please.
I'll try that.
Save it
but
for
I
the
think
end
I,
of the stream
I think I
for
should do. I
spoilers.
think I should do Super Gore Nest.
All right. Whatever
I would like
floats
to-
your boat.
So I was going to say,
I was going to
Sorry,
say,
go ahead,
after
Mickey.
he's done with the Steam controller, I'd like to see what's easier, that or a Guitar Hero controller.
I need to find one of those, but that would be. I mean, there's a really great channel on YouTube that I've seen that had beat the first Doom with a Guitar Hero controller. So it's not impossible.
Like I remember seeing someone play Dark Souls with a Pokeball Plus controller at some point, and that was amusing.
If someone wants to donate me a Guitar Hero controller, I will try it.
You gotta
So-
find one first.
when you first lifted up that controller, Alex, I thought in my head, oh, you're about to talk about how you regret getting into, the Steam machine and how it was this big investment of money that you look back on with disdain. I like whenever I've seen the controller that you held up previously in the past, I've always thought, oh, that looks kind of like a novel controller. I bet it feels pretty good. You know, Valve is generally a company that makes high quality products, and I was really disheartened to hear that it's not a good controller.
It's mostly, the biggest problem with it are the circle pads. They're just really awkward. They're trying to replicate the twitch movements of a mouse, but they do it really unsuccessfully. And just, I think overall it was just a failure, and there's a reason why they went off the market almost immediately.
I'm surprised you still have it.
If you're looking to get rid of that one, I will gladly take it off your hands. This
is a relic.
This is my
just
collector's
to
item.
have it. It's like a piece of history.
This is my collector's item. I'm not giving this away for anything.
Honestly, sidebar, but I want to find a way to get a copy of Cooking Mama Cookstar for that same reason, just because it's such a dumpster fire. I want to have a piece of that.
I've seen people with the physical copies,
like the original.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna try to hunt one down.
Like the original release of GTA San Andreas with the hot coffee mod still inside.
That's probably not that rare, though.
Yeah, they sold a lot of copies of that.
Yeah, they probably sold a lot of those.
Yeah.
I think somewhere I have the misprinted Resident Evil Revelations that came out on the 3DS that has the box art messed up. I gotta see if I can hunt that one down.
Isn't there one that a game that they printed?
Yeah,
the IGN
Okami.
logo?
Okami on the Wii.
Okami.
Yeah, that would be one to have
For sure. So back to our topic of the show.
You know what? Hold on. The thing is I'm pretty certain I have that box art in my collection in the back, but I don't want to get it right now. Nathan, what is your biggest gaming regret?
I'm a big BioWare fan. I've liked Dragon Age. I've played their games back in the day with Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale. But for whatever reason, I've put 10 minutes into the Mass Effect franchise in total.
That hurts.
Ouch.
So I'm not sure what it is. I bought Mass Effect 2. I think I got it for 99 cents at Radio Shack when they were doing a games clearance sale. And it didn't click with me, and I'm not sure why. And everybody speaks so fondly of it. And
the first Mass Effect didn't click with me either, but I was also 17 when that came out and not necessarily into that. I was more into like the fully action-packed Halo and stuff like that. It took me a couple years before I finally was able to sit down and be like, no, I bought this game, I spent money on it, I'm gonna put some time into it and make an informed opinion on it.
So I'm with you on this one, Nathan. One of my biggest regrets is not getting into the Mass Effect series. I bought the trilogy late in the PS3 life cycle and put maybe 2 hours into the first one, and I just didn't stick with it. I definitely regret not going back to that one.
That's too bad. You really should get around to those games.
if there was
at
a
some point.
PS4 remaster, I'd like to give it a try at some point. But at this point in the generation, I don't think we'll see it.
EA also just doesn't do remasters, which is so unfortunate because they're sitting on so many good games that they could make a lot of money off of. Even if they just did
KOTOR.
if they did the bare essentials and just re-release them, they could make
But
a
there
lot
are-
of money.
I mean,
Dead
they
Space.
did that with KOTOR.
Yeah,
Right?
KOTOR has.
Yeah, but KOTOR wasn't made by EA though. When it initially came out, they own the Star Wars license now, or they have the exclusive rights to it, but they didn't develop KOTOR. KOTOR was just BioWare and LucasArts.
Oh, they didn't. Oh, LucasArts published it. EA didn't publish it.
Yeah, because it was back in
Okay.
2003. So
Right.
yeah, same thing with the first Mass Effect. They didn't publish that, or they didn't publish that game either.
No, Microsoft published it initially, and then EA published the version of it on the PS3.
Yeah, after they bought BioWare in 2009 or 2010.
Something.
Did-
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm
somebody
sure someone
else
in the
do
chat will
something?
correct us.
Yeah.
Did somebody else do something for the Wii U version that came out, or was that in-house?
Let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
Come on.
Is anyone's gaming regret buying a Wii U?
Remember Batman Arkham for the Wii U? Yeah, that was a thing.
Oh, Alex, I do not regret my Wii U purchase, but I see how you could come to that conclusion.
Yeah, I really enjoyed my time with the Wii U, but
I know it has good
wasn't
games.
long enough.
Yeah, it has a lot of good games that probably need to come out elsewhere.
And most of them have. I think the last holdouts are probably the Mario games.
And
So
Pikmin
Super
and-
Mario 3D World, which is rumored to be coming this year.
That's
So,
a bad
yeah.
game.
I'm really looking. It's a good game. It's not the best Mario game, but it's a
That
good
game gets so much praise, and it's not a great Mario game. I don't like the jumping. Doesn't feel great. Like I got to Crown just to say I did it, because then my opinion would be valid. So because I did everything, and it's not anywhere as good as any 3D Mario game, and it's not as good as the 2D Mario games.
Cozy, welcome back. We went off the rails. I need you to point at somebody and ask them for a regret.
Sure. Before I do so, I just want to mention I had to quickly walk away from the show because I had to do number 1, so to speak.
No one needed to know that.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Did nobody need to know that?
No,
I'm sorry.
they didn't.
I thought we needed to know that. I figured that you guys would all ask me if I didn't say what I
No.
did. No?
Cozy, go pee pee.
All right.
We're professionals.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We are professionals. But I also want to mention that I briefly stepped by my game collection to check out my Okami box art, and it did not have the IGN watermark on it. So,
White
yeah, it
whale,
would appear
holy
that
grail.
they printed a new version of it at some point. So, anyways, AJ,
Yes.
what you got?
Back when the first of the Transformers movies came out,
The Michael Bay ones or the 80
the
something one?
the Michael Bay ones, Shia LaBeouf and stuff like that.
Gotta love Shia.
There was a movie tie-in game. Now,
Oh,
at the
man, I
time,
own all of them.
I knew better. Like, hey, listen, movie games are always trash. But I was watching X-Play at the time, and they did a preview for this one. And that preview sold me on it. And I was maybe a little too hyped for this game. And I started playing it, and I was determined to play through it. And I got really close. So from what I remember, because it's been like 10, 11, maybe 12 years at this point, there were 2 campaigns in it. Autobots, Decepticons, right? And through the Autobot campaign, you just play the game. You go through the story, and it was just it was an okay time as like a general movie tie-in sort of beat 'em up. But specifically, it was towards the end of the game. There was a big boss fight, and the game was the difficulty of the game at this point was just so broken that it took me hours to try and get through it, and I ended up taking my controller and slamming it real hard into the ground.
Yep.
That was a
I was sitting cross-legged on the floor in front of my TV, and I just smash just right onto the floor, and it didn't fully break the controller, but it did split open a little bit.
Oof.
And I've still got that controller in a box downstairs, but I regret buying that game.
Do we want to talk broken stuff right now? Because I got a good broken stuff story.
Yeah, I've got
it.
some of
Do it.
those.
This was actually one of the regrets I wanted to bring, so I could talk about it.
Okay.
Break me, Mitchie, break me.
So when I was younger, and the PS2 was at the height of its popularity, and I owned games like ATV Off-Road Fury and Resident Evil 4, and those are the only 2 games I can remember owning on the PS2. Actually, no, Guitar Hero was a thing. Okay, outside of that, I remember an incident, and this was back when controllers had these wires that would connect to a console, which is just, no one could think that, that's unheard of. But, back then it was a thing. So I have a younger sister. We got into a fight. I was chasing her around the room. The cord was there. It was at about ankle level. And sister's ankle went through the cord. And the PS2 hit the floor.
Ooh.
And that, our RIP to that OG fat PS2, but it did not boot after that. We had to eventually, after tons of crying and pleading with my parents, go out and purchase a heavily discounted Slim PS2, which I would argue is the better form factor for that system anyway. But yeah, I regret being an idiot kid and breaking that PS2.
Yeah, I have quite a history
But
of
if you'd met my sister, you'd understand why that happened, but it still
I think
sucks.
I met her in Animal Crossing once.
Maybe? She's a lot more tolerable in Animal Crossing where she can't talk.
Does she listen to the show?
shit.
I no, thank God. But all things aside, my sister's great. I love her. I actually delivered her Taco Bell tonight, which I probably shouldn't have done, but she really wanted Taco Bell and isn't leaving the house. But yeah, back then she was an annoying brat. And I regret breaking that PS2.
Sorry, Alex, did you have something that you wanted to bring up with regards to broken?
Oh, I just have my own anecdote about broken stuff. And so so a few years ago, I was very, very, very into League of Legends, like a lot. Like I started playing in 2004, I think like the end of 2013, beginning of 2014.
How many hours?
Dota's better.
I have
What's the hour count?
No, Dota 2 is not better. I don't like League
Dota's
now, and
better.
I will still fight you on that. It's
Dota's better.
Probably like it's definitely over 1,000. I don't know though. I don't think I could actually quantify how much. It was a lot. I can tell you how much money I spent on that game though, which is another regret. Is just because
I got one of those too.
It's lost money. I'll just quickly. It's about $1,700 over 5 years.
Jesus.
Yeah, I owned a lot of skins
How?
in that game. It's a lot. There's a
That's
lot
the
of
cost
skins.
of 2 consoles at launch.
How
There's
could
a
you
lot of
afford that?
skins.
You're a child.
Every week I would have a certain amount of money, like allowance when I was a child, and it all went to League of Legends. That was a game that I primarily played for about 4 years. I only played that with my friends. But that's not even my regret, though. But even though that is a regret. But my regret with in regards to the broken stuff is ranked matches in League of Legends are very, very tense. And you get very upset when your teammates are not doing what you want them to. But in reality, you're the one actually playing bad. But you're never going to admit that. And I was a very angry teenager. And so, like I was one of the teenagers who would tell you to do very not nice things, like commit forever sleep and stuff like that. I was not a good kid. Either way.
I like the way you phrased that.
So we've actually
the
got a
audience.
question in the chat from Monarchy, just asking what pulled you away from League? What made you stop?
I couldn't do it. The game stopped being fun, and
You should
the
try
real
Dota.
honestly no actually no well the realest real answer, and this might get a little whatever, but it's because when I was going through chemotherapy, sitting at my computer desk was so awful that I just stopped playing League for a year, and that's probably what pulled me out of it, was just not being able to actually sit at my desk.
We're going on a tangent of a tangent here, but I'm
Yeah, we are.
curious. Alex, are you interested in any of like the single player focused League of Legends games that they recently announced? Not like League of Legends games, but like set in the League of Legends
would love
universe.
That. The world is fascinating for League. Like it is.
That's what like Valorant is in the League.
Valorant
universe,
looks
right?
boring, yeah. But Valorant looks boring. It looks like Counter-Strike meets Overwatch, and I don't need either of those games in my life. But
To each their own.
Either way, like that's a completely other tangent. But yeah, I would love it. The League of Legends world is really cool. I think the lore is very fascinating. The characters are just super great. They're all unique. They all are super cool. I still love so much of the character design of those games that, yeah, if they did do interesting games, I would totally play them. Back to Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, to get a little bit back more on topic.
There we go.
Like, I spent like $300, I think, on Kingdom Hearts Unchained X back when I played that game, and I have mixed feelings. It's not a regret, because honestly, most of those purchases led to me making really good loot box pulls and advancing in the game, but in retrospect, I kind of wish I had diverted that money somewhere else.
So I've got something in the same ilk, and you probably haven't heard of it, but I spent more money than I'd like to admit on a little mobile game called Marvel Avengers Academy.
Is this your regret?
This is a regret.
Okay, this is not the regret, though, that you were going to bring forward.
This was the regret I mentioned earlier when we were talking about microtransactions, but I do have more than one.
Okay.
So for those who don't know, Marvel Avengers Academy I found out recently, it shut down recently. It was essentially a sim-like game where all the interactions were locked behind time gates, and they had seasonal events, and to proceed in those events, you had to spend real money, and I had a job, and I spent real money, and I regret the amount of money that I spent on that game because it didn't really do anything. It just sort of tugged at my superhero fandom heartstrings. And if I could get that money back, I absolutely would want to do that because I spent far too much time just hitting boxes to advance timers and spending money on premium currency to do that faster, to speed through events. And I don't know what it was. It's the only game that's hooked me like that from like a microtransaction-y, time-boxed events / time-gated interactions. I don't know what it did, but it did, and it got me for a lot of money.
Question from the chat. Monarchy wants to know how much you spent.
I don't want to remember.
You've repressed that.
I probably played for about 6 to 8 months. Each month there would have been an in-game event, and I probably spent upwards of $50 on each event.
Just to be clear, this is the game where, because I briefly recall seeing some screenshots of this on Twitter. Peggy, who is like Captain America's girlfriend back in the Roaring 40s, she was able to like time travel back to modern day times and like end up in this high school.
So the theming of it was all the Avengers characters as teenagers in a high school run by Hank Pym, and it was actually pretty progressive it was pretty progressive at the time. There's a lot of like LGBTQ themes that are covered in the game. It was really well written. I really enjoyed the writing, but I spent way too much money in that game, and I regret it to this day.
Okay. Wow. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, what's your real regret? What's the main course that you have to share with us?
My main course? It is the collection of NES games that I no longer own. Because at a yard sale when I was a kid, our NES was broken, so we sold the NES and probably 20 games for about $10 at a yard sale.
Ooh.
And these were there were some good games in there. Like you had any Mario that was on the system. So you had Mario 1, you had Mario 3. The ridiculously broken Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game for the NES is one I fondly remember playing and then no longer playing after we sold it. Blades of Steel. Played a lot of Blades of Steel with my sister when we were kids. And I just regret that I didn't hold on to those games and just find a new NES. Like if I could go back now and tell my younger self one thing, two things. It would be get with your fiance sooner because high school sucks, and it would have been better if you'd spent more time with her. And secondly, would have been don't sell your fucking NES, or at least don't sell the games.
Oh yeah, there's so many games that I have sold, like because EB Games has a promotion that if you trade 3 games, you can get 1 new game. It's not worth it in the slightest.
God no,
because
keep
they
your
make
games.
so much extra money.
Enjoy
and
them.
I genuinely every single time regret it.
Like I do know that some people end up in financial situations where, let's say you're supporting a family and you can't afford an $80 game. In those situations, yes, if there's a game you know you're never going to go back to, take advantage of the deal. But there's a few times where I did that on like during the PS2 or the Wii or PS3, sorry, and the Wii generation where I traded stuff in that I wish I still had. What comes to mind? Marvel Ultimate Alliance, the original one. Thank God they re-released it on the PS4. Otherwise, I wouldn't own it. And that's a game I loved as a kid. Okami on the PS2 I traded in, and I wish I still had that. Like there's just a lot of things that, like a lot of memories that I have tied into games that I can no longer go back and experience because I decided to sell these things. Especially for me, it's like thank God I was smart enough to keep my SNES still functioning Controllers are still in decent shape. We've got Street Fighter, we got Mario, we got the good stuff, but I really, really regret parting with those NES games. Especially since they're probably worth a lot more than $10.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna jump in here because my big regret is of a very similar ilk. Maybe not necessarily as bad because you only sold your stuff for $10. But when the 360 came out, was about to come out, I needed to gather some funds, and so what I did in order to pay it off is I did go to EB Games because that's where I had my Xbox 360 pre-order, and I traded in my GameCube, all the games for it, and the my N64, the games for that, and a good handful of my original NES games. You know, yeah, a lot of those memories sort of. I really wish I could reclaim a lot of those memories and stuff like that. It wasn't necessarily as bad as you were saying, Alex, with regards to the trade-in to EB Games, because at the time they had a kind of a scratch, like a they're just kind of like, oh hey, come in, if you trade your games you'll get a scratch ticket and your trade-ins will be worth that much more value. And so what, my N64 games, which probably would have been worth, I believe, 25 cents at the time because EB Games, were worth about $5 instead.
So I actually remember a specific instance where EB Games had their trade 3 get it free, and this was during the Wii U generation, and they were still accepting Rayman Raving Rabbids as an applicable game, but it was on sale at Toys R Us for I think $15.
Yeah.
So I legitimately went to Toys R Us, bought 3 copies of this one game to trade in for something, probably Mario, probably something.
And you're the reason why EB Games is in financial problems now.
No, they're in financial problems for a lot of other reasons, and it's the fact that they try to, gouge their consumers for, nickels and dimes on protection programs that mean nothing. Their whole business model relies on something that's no longer going to be a thing in 2-3 years, and that's physical media.
Yeah, Alex, physical media is not going to be a thing.
That says otherwise.
In high school, a friend of mine worked at EB Games, and he had access to what all the prices were and what they were going to be and when. And so he would go to like the clearance bins at other stores and stuff like that and go grab like every copy, and he eventually got fired because he got caught trading into his personal account and doing that. So yeah, don't be a jerk and do that.
So unless you guys have any more stories to share of ill-informed video game sells, I want to get on to my regret.
I've got one.
Okay, go for it. Because my segment is going to go a little bit long and rambly, so I don't want to take away from you
saving
guys.
the best for last, right?
Yeah,
as only a host can do.
In a way, I don't know that it's going to be quite as regretful as some of the ones that you guys brought up, but anyways,
Go ahead. I sold on Kijiji my 3DS with Fire Emblem Awakening, Pokemon X, Super Mario 3D Land, and Mario Kart 7. I think those were all the games that I owned, but there's probably at least 1 or 2 others. I think I got maybe $135, and I used that to buy Grand Theft Auto 5 on PC. That was the main reason why I did it, and I regret that immensely because I wish I had a 3DS because I want to play all the Zelda games that I've never played, which is all of them but Breath of the Wild.
So the good ones.
Link Between Worlds is so good.
In the
Breath
moment,
of the
though,
Wild is a
you,
good game.
I want to say, in the moment, did you enjoy Grand Theft Auto 5, though?
Yes.
Were you like,
I wanted to get it because all my friends on PC had it. And so, but my PC couldn't really run. It was before I built my good gaming computer, so I just had like my really shitty thrown together one. And so it could barely run the game, to the point where like the world wouldn't fully load. And so I would be like, I would be missing huge chunks of the world. And so I couldn't really play the game, so it wasn't that great of a decision. But I'm glad I have Grand Theft Auto 5 on PC now because it's a really good game. I have no idea what else I used that money for, but that was the main thing that I sold it for. I also sold my PS3 with like all of the Uncharted, The Last of Us, and X-Men Origins Wolverine, which is a really great game. For
You don't have to
I
worry
don't
about the
remember what.
Uncharted games anymore, right? Because
Yeah.
now you're getting them for free.
I
bugger.
own all of the. Well, I already had Uncharted. It's Journey that
okay,
I
never
would be
mind.
getting. Either way, I own all those games on
Right,
PS4,
right.
and I own X-Men Origins Wolverine on Xbox 360 now. So I've got all those games. I just wish I had a PS3 because I want to play Metal Gear. Yeah.
All right. So I'll get around to my regret. Do you guys remember Videotron?
The store?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm referring to the store because Videotron also exists in Canada as like a mobile service provider
So they're a
slash
mobile
internet provider.
Yeah, they're a service provider in Quebec.
Yeah. So the one that I was referring to is the DVD slash VHS rental store version of Videotron. There used to be a Videotron that was located fairly close to my home growing up, and it was a fine place to go and rent movies, DVD and VHSs from back in the day. But at certain point, they decided to install a microplay inside of the Videotron. Microplay was basically the kind of video game subsidiary of Videotron. It was a place where they would sell like new and used games and other doodads and whatnots. It was kind of like a very like regional, slightly higher priced EB Games or GameStop, to use a point of comparison.
And that's saying something.
And yeah, and like here's the thing. I'm certain that there are people across the country that have had great experiences with microplays in the past. I just, in general, did not have a lot of great experiences at this microplay. The microplay was actually managed by an older gentleman, I think like in his 60s or possibly even early 70s. And it was kind of novel because like I was like, oh, I'm usually used to seeing people my age or even younger playing video games. So it's kind of cool that there's this older man that was into video games as well. And in retrospect, I probably should have, like in retrospect, that novelness probably allowed me to kind of look past a lot of unsavory things about this man. To make a long story short, this guy was, he clearly saw that I was somebody who was into video games and was vulnerable and didn't really have a really good idea of what things were worth and was out to gouge me at any opportunity he saw. I remember one time back when our parents finally got my parents. I don't know why I said our.
Yeah, we
parents.
don't
My
we don't
sister is
we don't
not
share
here.
a family. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, but we're
Or
family,
do you?
right? We're more than
Yeah.
friends.
Back when we
Dun,
got
dun, dun.
our PlayStation 3 and our first HD TV, I remember going to this guy to get an HDMI cable because like the idea of using an HDMI cable was a totally alien foreign concept. And this guy's like, yeah, sure, I'll show you this HDMI cable. And it was like $30. And it's like, this one's really good, high quality.
That's not
And it worked, but it's like, I did not need a $30 HDMI cable right off the bat. IMO. And then, but so hold on, that I realize that, that is like my first example is like perhaps not that egregious of an example. This is the kind of guy where I bring in a bunch of Super Nintendo games like what we were discussing in previously and attempt to sell them all because I'm like, I want to have some spending change to buy new video game stuff with.
We were all such
And-
dumb kids.
Yeah, and it's just in retrospect, I actually realized that perhaps I'm imprinting my own thoughts or opinion of this guy onto him. I don't necessarily know if this is how he actually felt, but like he sees this kid coming in, he sees that I have all these like precious old video games, and he's like, my deal is that I'll if you have like 5 of them, I'll buy each of them for $5, and that will get you $25. How's that sound? And it's like, short of just saying, hey, you should probably keep those games for yourself and you shouldn't trade them in, he should have at least given me a more fair and accurate assessment of what their actual prices were, but he did not do that. And yeah, so on multiple levels, I regret obviously just selling in the games myself, and obviously that's on me. But I regret him not, giving me a more, I guess you'd say, comprehensive breakdown of the value of what I was actually trading into him, or even just straight up attempting to kind of like, talk me out of my thing. But obviously me choosing to sell them was my fault in the first place. I don't know. Do you think that I'm like I'm imprinting too much personality on this guy that he may not have necessarily had? Or
Oh no, this guy's a total dick.
Okay, great. I'm happy that you all are with me. You guys were all really silent. I was like, are you guys like in silent disagreement with me?
No,
or?
I'm crying on the inside.
I think you deserve what you got.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Okay, a bit of a
Dad.
tangent though for those Southern Ontario kids here. When you were a kid, was it Rogers Video or was it Blockbuster?
Both.
It's Blockbuster.
Jumbo Video.
Boo. Cozy? I don't know what things were like.
It
on
was just-
payback.
Popcorn? Jumbo Video with
was-
the popcorn? Come on.
Like I said, it was just Videotron.
Just the Videotron, yeah. That's what I figured.
Anyways, my last story involving this guy that I'm going to bring up, because there are like a lot of like stories I want to bring up, but like the last one that really sticks out of my mind, and this is, to be fair, this is neither of our faults, but it is still something I deeply regret. I remember going in to purchase a copy of Super Mario RPG from him, because at the time Super Mario RPG was not available on the Virtual Console on the Wii. You could only play it by, playing a ROM or by getting a cartridge for your still functional Super Nintendo, which I had at the time. And I remember paying $80 for it, which, for like an older, rarer Super Nintendo game, like it's understandable that I would pay that much. But lo and behold, I think a few months after I bought it for $80, it became available on the Virtual Console for $8.
Oh,
So...
that's the thing. The digital revolution is making it so we can play these games we haven't been able to play, except Nintendo doesn't want to give them to us.
I will say, like, two things. First off, I got a lot of mileage out of that copy of Super Mario RPG. That was a great game. And two, like, video games here in Quebec generally cost a fair bit more than even $80 nowadays. So, I mean,
Yeah, with
I guess
tax,
it's-
it gets up to 90, doesn't it?
yeah. So, I mean, like,
Over 90.
in retrospect, it's almost like I purchased a brand new game and, got the same level of enjoyment out of it. But it sucks that the timing worked out that way.
So I just want to bring up in the chat, we've had a couple people write in saying that their backlog and letting it get as big as it is their biggest regret. So I just want to ask each of you, what is the biggest backlog, like the biggest regret you have that's on your backlog that you really want to get to, but you're not gonna?
Ooh.
Give me a second, because I have quite a few.
I mean, I can go first since I brought it up to give you guys a second to think. But for me, it kind of goes back to what I spoke about earlier. It is the Mass Effect trilogy. The fact I've never played those games, and I own them. They're sitting in a storage unit in my apartment right now. But to pull out a PS3, which I think it should be down there, but it was also a PS3 Fat. Like one of the OG, still had backwards compatibility built into it. Like, is that good? I mean, it was great up until the point that it decided that it wasn't going to play The Last of Us and just yellow lighted. But yeah, like that game is stuck in a way that I can't play it, that I really want to get to. And short of me building a PC and playing them there, I don't know how I'm going to do it.
My biggest regret in the backlog is The Last of Us.
The what?
Sorry, your audio cut out for a second.
My
What was
biggest
that?
regret's The Last of Us. Somehow I just...
Wow.
Yeah,
Really?
so I like Naughty Dog games. I love the
Holy
Uncharted
crap.
series. I'm not a big horror guy typically, and I know The Last of Us isn't a horror game, but it's got those. It has those moments, so it's something I've been able to put off. But when they had it free last year on the PSN for PS Plus, so it's just sitting in my backlog now, and I'm like, I should go play it. I know there's a new one coming out. I don't think I'm gonna play the new one right away, anyways. It's like the genre doesn't jump out at me as something I want to play. I love the action adventures of the Uncharted series, I think, a little more, but I need to go back and play that because I know it's a seminal game.
Ooh.
I mean, in my case, it's like a bunch of games that I've actually, like, if I don't own them, I've started them multiple times and I've just been distracted by something or other. The big game that comes to mind in this regard is Batman Arkham City. Played Batman Arkham Asylum to completion, loved it, and I've started Arkham City multiple times, and it's just something or other has always come up that is taking me away from getting through it.
Honestly,
I would
Cozy,
say-
if we could set up a way for you to stream that and like have me as your co-pilot through that game, I would sit there with you and watch you play that whole game and just help you through it, because that's a game that I absolutely adored.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll definitely look into it. I am going to be like getting back to it sometime in the future. We'll see. Sometime. If I keep saying sometime, it will happen. I would say that the other big thing game, though, and this is more recent, is the 2018 God of War. That's another game. I started it. You can go back and root through my Twitch archives. You can see me getting through the first opening hours of it. I was genuinely enjoying it, and just life got away from me.
Please get back to that. That game
Oh,
is
100%.
so. When I finished Final Fantasy VII Remake,
I just want to say,
Sorry,
for
go
the record, I have played and platinumed every single other God of War game that has ever come out on every single platform that they could be platinumed on.
so
like
not
this
the
is,
PSP.
I actually no, I played all those. I played them when they came out on the PSP, and then I played them again when they were remastered for the PlayStation 3.
Oh, that's right. And they had trophies when they were remastered, but not on the PSP, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Forgot about that remaster. So
Yeah, so like I have a lot of love for the series. I'm definitely going to get back to it. You don't much more. This is a much more definitive. I will get back to it than the Batman Arkham City. I will get back to it.
Yeah, I mentioned to you guys when I finished Final Fantasy VII Remake, my top 3 games of this generation are Marvel Spider-Man, God of War, and Final Fantasy VII Remake. It made it into that top 3, so I really, really, really want to see you get back to that. And I'd be so interested in hearing what you think. Ballant?
Well, looking at my shelf, I don't know if I have one that I can say that I'm never going to be able to go back to. I mean, actually, I think I could say Metal Gear Solid 1 through 4 and Peace Walker would probably fall under that. Just because, not because I don't want to, not because I don't have the time, but just because they're absolutely inaccessible to play. There's no way for me to be able to play them unless I
I
go
hear
out and
they
buy
should
it.
probably remake those
They should at least remaster
in like
them.
the MGS5 engine. Or
Yeah, that may or may not have come up on last week's show.
But
you'll have to listen.
But yeah, the game at least that is currently in my backlog that I want to play, and I'm probably going to play, depending on if I do it after Mass Effect or before Mass Effect, is Persona 5. I want to play through that. I've heard it's really, really fantastic.
great.
And honestly, I'm missing school so much that I just want to have that experience somehow.
Yeah, like you picked up 3 houses as well, hoping for the same thing, right?
Yeah, and oh my god.
Yeah, the other reason I booted my Vita back up is I never finished P4G, so Persona 4 Golden,
Oh, it's
and
so
I really
good.
want to get back to it while we have all this downtime. AJ, did you have anything in your backlog you regret not getting to? And then I can go through a bit of what our audience is saying.
I mean, everything that I bought on Steam sale, I regret not getting to. When I built my PC that I mentioned last week, your first PC, you can play all the things, so you buy all the things when they're on sale. I think Game Grumps has a series where they play through like a Steam back catalog or something like that.
They used to.
Whatever. Yeah, they used to. I haven't watched them for years, but
Yeah.
I think it kind of ties into my regret purchase of the Transformers game based on what I was told via a preview. But I was watching a Giant Bomb live stream of Mary Kish from GameSpot playing Evolve,
Oh, yeah.
and I regret buying that one.
As do most people.
She sold me on it, and
No one played
looked
it.
really good, and I bought it, and then hated it.
Oh wow, you hated it.
It's
Hated
not a
it.
good game.
It was not.
So the press loved that game. And if I remember correctly at the time, I believe it was Vincent Janito, who was still working for IGN at the time, was really, really high on it because when they went to preview events, it was all very well coordinated for them to play together. So you'd have the 4 versus 1. It just never, like, it was really hard to get people together to do that and have that same responsiveness. So nobody was able to get that same feeling out of it. And I think that's where you saw so much enthusiast press talking positively about it, because they were put in a perfect atmosphere to play it, and then it got released in the public and it wasn't perfect at that point.
Yeah, but you can look at other games of that nature that have come out, something like Final Fantasy it's stuck in my head, Friday the 13th, there it is, with that asymmetric multiplayer, or a game I was actually just introduced to on a stream, actually, was Dead by Daylight. That is also incredibly popular in that asynchronous 1vx approach to multiplayer. So it does work, but if you don't have an audience that comes to your game, it's DOA, it's dead on arrival.
I mean, I think the difference between something like Friday the 13th and Evolve, though, is that in Friday the 13th, you're not dead in the water if you can't communicate with your teammates.
That's true.
Is that like that? That's kind of the understanding that I got. That was the kind of problem with Evolve.
You needed to work together because the monster kept getting more powerful and more powerful. Especially, I think there were 3 evolutions of it. I never played it, but if I remember correctly, 3 evolutions of the monster. And by the 3rd one, unless your guys are all working in tandem, the monster's going to kill you.
Yeah, so I had like the experience that I had, because I gave it a somewhat decent shot in one night before I decided enough was enough, and I just wasted $80. But playing on the
was that an $80 game when it came out?
Yeah, I think something like.
What was a full price game
at the time? It was 2014, 2015.
Yeah, so it was probably 60, but even then, that's a lot.
Yeah. It too much money for the amount of time I put into it. But no, like I felt completely disadvantaged as the solo monster, regardless, like when I'd go in with randoms, probably because the team of humans were a team of people who were playing together, and I felt completely disadvantaged jumping onto a team of humans against the monster because nobody was talking to me.
So before we go too deep down this asynchronous multiplayer rabbit hole that it sounds like we're going to, let's go to the chat and see what people are writing in with in terms of their biggest backlog regrets. So we've got Loki Mike in the chat, who is a friend of the show that likes to call me out in that he still wants to get back to the Division 2 and get the platinum with me. So he was part of the party that I put together, or that was put together. I don't think I was responsible. And we were playing Division 2 almost daily when I go back a few months in the show and I talk at length about it. But that's definitely a game that I also want to get back to, Mike, and we will, I promise, eventually one day, maybe, who knows. Chumba in the chat saying Metal Gear Solid, which that's on my list for sure, and I know it was brought up by Alex. Monarchy saying the Max Payne series, KOTOR, which God, they need to remake, Dead Rising, BioShock, a lot of really good games that people just haven't found the time for, and hopefully with all of this downtime that we've now been forced into, people get a chance to go back and, I would not have pulled my Vita out of storage if this hadn't happened. I wouldn't have pulled my DS Lite out, but now we have some time. So if you're able to take the time, enjoy something that you've been putting off, and really embrace embrace this isolation period as a way to reconnect with things you may have lost.
I was not expecting the show to come full circle, considering that we started it out talking about Rogue Legacy and how I got back into it with all of the free time that we currently are having. You should go, everybody in the chat, I already talked a lot about this game. Go check out Rogue Legacy if you haven't yet.
It's on sale right now on the Switch. For anyone watching live, it's a great game.
100%. All right. Well, you've been watching or perhaps listening to Press YYZ, episode 12. Next week, our topic of the show is going to be a new episode of Video Game Rehab, where we're going to be discussing a little series called Mass Effect.
I have nothing to say. Can I be excused?
You have a week to
pull out my PS3 and play through 3 60-hour games?
They're not 60 hours. They're like 40 each.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
You guys,
Someone's got to host.
Go.
even if you guys are not, like I know you, Nathan, as well, even if the two of you are not super familiar with this series, certainly your opinions as people that are fresh and who don't have any experience in it will still be valuable, because obviously you will be able to help us figure out how to build the foundation for a brand new iteration of the series if and when it
Does
will
it have
happen.
sex in it?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Guys, come on. The show can't be as thirsty as
Be
Final Fantasy
sorry.
VII Remake.
There's
Well,
blue
we'll
aliens.
see
there's
about that.
Purple aliens. Whatever color alien you
Liara
want.
Tassoni is my waifu.
If you want to continue to follow the exploits of Press YYZ when we're offline,
Before we get to that, if you have anything you
Oh.
want to say about Mass Effect, feel free to write into us on Twitter.
That's
by,
correct.
By email, pressyyz@gmail.com. Message any of us on any of the platforms we're on, which Cozy will get to in a second.
yeah. And to that point, if you want to follow our exploits offline / send in your opinions about Mass Effect, you can do so on our Twitter account at PressYYZ, or also at our Gmail account, pressyyz@gmail.com. You can follow yours truly on Twitter at Alex Kozina. I was hoping that somebody would take the baton out of the air that I just
You're the host.
tossed
You
out.
have to.
We
You
all
have to
want
It
put
normally
it
gets
at us,
thrown
yeah.
to us.
Otherwise, we're all
Yeah,
talking
that'll
at the same
happen.
time,
Yeah.
and I talk
We're all
loud.
being polite.
Polite
All right,
Canadians.
well, see, we
Sorry.
switched up a couple of weeks ago to making it so that we're not calling out specifically who says what when we get to the part where we talk about what we've been doing over the past week. So I thought, in my mind, I'm like,
Conversational.
yeah. Anyways, all right, Mitch, you go first.
Everywhere.
I'm handing the baton over to you. Don't mess it up.
Twitter, Instagram at Mr. Mitch George. Nathan.
You can follow me at _NMAC on Twitter if you want to see some Animal Crossing stuff, because I post pictures there. But also follow me on ps4blog.net, where I write reviews for. This week, I posted reviews for Overpass, a mediocre off-road racer, which focuses on getting around obstacles and over logs and things you wouldn't do. And a fairly good motorcycle game, TT Isle of Man Ride the Edge 2. So, anyways, I'm going to throw it to Alex.
Okay. On Instagram, I am blatantly Alex, and on Twitter, I am blatantly _Alex. And soon, I'm going to have a date with twitch.tv/PressYYZ, the channel you're currently watching, or if you're listening, you should check it out, with the Steam controller and Doom Eternal. So keep an eye out on my Twitter for that, because I have a feeling
God,
that
that's
I'm
gonna be
both
good.
going to do something video-wise with it and also stream it as well. So keep an eye out for that.
I feel like this could get a good amount of YouTube likes.
I'm really excited. I've got some ideas. Let me just say that. AJ, you now.
All
Set
right.
up a controller camera for that. You can find me all over the internet at TimesHero, capital T, capital H.
All right, cool. And finally, last but not least, if you enjoy Twitch as a platform and you're hoping that you could catch more of us on Twitch more often, I am going to be streaming from my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/CozyBearLive, in just a few minutes. So
All right.
stay tuned for that. All right, until next time, this is Press YYZ signing off.
Peace.
Thanks for playing.
Adios.